Among some of the more bizarre responses that I've gotten to decommissioning the Dellasaurus would have to be the sad responses. I really don't understand those. No, I want to see another Dellasaurus video and it's the end. I'm gonna cry all night now. The Dellasaurus is dead. What are you doing? Yeah.
Epic fail.
Whatever. Come on! You people, what exactly more did you think I was going to do with this not even 600 megahertz piece of crap? Well, there was nothing more I could do with this. I only kept the optical drive to keep the thing to put on the next drive that goes in here, so it might look kind of similar, although it's not going to have the volume or the headphone jack or anything like that. And as you can tell, with both of these systems, even though the innards are getting recycled, they're still here. Which means I don't need this many doorstops. So, actually, I do have some plans for both of these systems. Just, I don't know when I'll get to it, but the big thing that we need to talk about regarding the Dellasaurus, the HP, and everything else that I have going here is a little something called concentrated coolness. This is something that I learned from Blizzard with the initial success of World of Warcraft at the various videos of BlizzCon speeches and things like that, where they were talking about what made the game so successful. Among some of the things that they were talking about was how all the classes in the game had what was called concentrated coolness. There was a compelling, unique, nice reason, dare I say cool, to play every class in the game. And that's what, there were games at the time like EverQuest 2 that were really struggling with that. Like, for example, if you wanted to play a melee warrior / knight in shining armor, there were two different classes for tank warrior and DPS warrior. Needless to say, that didn't go over very well. Depending on whether you wanted to do more tanking or doing more damage, you re-rolled in order to change roles, even though they were both warriors that wore heavy armor. So that taught me a lesson or two. And of course, well, we know what happened with EverQuest 2 versus World of Warcraft and history, and the rest is history, of course. So, concentrated coolness is a thing that I'm looking for with every single system that I have. No exceptions. And whenever I run into a challenge with concentrated coolness, I have to figure out in order to keep this system, I gotta think, well, why would I want to? Why would I want to make videos about this machine and not that machine? Why would I want to do this but not that? Why would I blah 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 blah? Something to that effect. So I need to, in order for things to stay interesting with this stuff, I have to figure out and of course, now I have two systems from long time ago with nothing in them. How am I going to make it so that this machine has a different type of concentrated coolness than this machine? And I think I figured it out. First, the HP, which interestingly enough isn't yellowing everywhere, just the plastic pieces. Some of you who follow me on Twitter, you've probably heard me toss this name around by now, but yes, if you were putting all the dots together and connecting them all up, you guessed correctly. This machine is going to be known as Fossil. I mean, look at it. Look at how yellowed it is. It looks like someone dug it out of some hole somewhere, excavated it or something like that. So the HP Pavilion 6460, formerly with a Celeron and from the era of Windows 98, I'm going to refer to as Fossil. And watch the fat bike. Yeah, it's kind of drying off from when I tried it in the snow yesterday. Now it had 50 degrees and everything melted. It was fun while it lasted with the fat biking weather and whatever. Might get some black ice tonight though. We got rain today and that might flash freeze tonight. I might want to take an alternate way into work tomorrow. But anyways. So, the HP Pavilion. This is a 6460. It's the 6000 series, late 90s. I actually had a friend in college who had one of these because he'd had a computer for a couple of years when I got there. It's older than the 8700 that I had that didn't make it through college. Now, I'm sorry I threw out the computer when I graduated. I probably could have put a joke system in that all these years later. It'd be nice if I could find one of those things and, give it some but it needs to have concentrated coolness. So, anyways, this is the old piece of junk. This is the old piece of junk, but it's nice and fat. And I think it actually might have some room for an ATX standard board, because the HP Pavilion that I had in college had room for an ATX board. The motherboard was an Asus K7M, and it was slot A, Athlon, 750 megahertz, although I originally ordered 800, so we got screwed on that right out the gate. But that little case, even though it was technically a mini tower, could have a full-sized ATX board in it, which means this thing, if I can just run some duct tape over those little bumps that the motherboard attaches to prevent shorting out on newer boards that may not have contact areas that are that big, if I can, find a way to insulate it, probably some double-width duct tape or something like that going over everything, then we can mount something in here, maybe a full-sized ATX board. I do have plans for a proof of concept where I put something in here just to show that it can work. And yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That'll be part of Beyond 10 Years. Next up, of course, is none other than the Dellasaurus itself. I already have plans for a video very early on in Beyond 10 Years where we talk about, called Autopsy of the Dellasaurus. Now, I will get around to that when I figure out how we're going to get around the problem with the proprietary mounting hardware that used to be in this thing. The Dellasaurus is a worse candidate for a joke system than the HP is. So, what I want to do with this thing is I want to perhaps maybe see if I can find some brass risers with some extra long threading so I can put it through 2 washers and make up for the proprietary nonsense via 2 washers, a nut, and something I can mount the board to. I guess it has to be made so it doesn't conduct and something like that. So there's going to be some mechanical tinkering in order to bring the Dellasaurus back. But I think with the reputation that the Dellasaurus has developed since that joke with Windows 8 almost 5 years ago, I think with the reputation that this machine has developed in terms of we're always trying to make new software run on crappy hardware, whereas the joke system can have some actual punch to it, I think I want to do like an AMD Kabini or something really dirt cheap, bottom of the barrel, inside this thing. And it can't even be a full ATX board either, so that's why I'm thinking Kabini, and see what kind of mileage I can get out of the worst processor on the market or something like that. So this thing does not have as many motherboard options as that thing does, so we're kind of restricted on that. So the concentrated coolness solution with these 2 computers is very clear. Fossil will be the joke system with the surprising amount of horsepower in this horrid old case. I might even try to disguise the optical drive might even put in a floppy drive too, just to be funny. I don't have anything to put in the floppy drive, but if there's some other way I can repurpose the floppy drive, I would love to, I'd love to try something with that. And then the Dellasaurus, of course, will be the how much can we push pathetic-ass hardware even for its time. Just like how the Celeron that was originally in this thing was... This thing was a low-end system back in 2000 when my dad bought it, so he wouldn't be the only guy in the family that wasn't on the internet. So I want to keep that trend going. Whatever I put in this thing, I want it to be bottom-of-the-barrel dirt cheap. I do have standards, though. So I want it to be quad-core. No dual cores, please! But quad-core can mean Kabini. It doesn't necessarily need to... so I just want to put something in that's bottom of the barrel and horrid and see how far we can push that hardware inside this case. Just like the last go-round. And of course we'll use washers and everything, and we will absolutely push everything to the limit, which is what I want to do. So, yes, I do have plans for both of these systems. It may be like, the biblical book of Ezekiel, hey, can these bones live? No, that type of deal. But when everything's all said and done, both of these machines will have some concentrated coolness, and this one in particular will have some novelty if I bring it to a LAN party or something like that, and I'm like, hey, check out this computer! And we'll plug some controllers into it, and like, wait, this thing can run some modern game that you would never expect. I don't think it gets any more sleeper machine than something like that. Unless I repurposed an old Commodore 64 or something, but then it would be obvious. When it comes to concentrated coolness, though, the biggest question mark that I actually have here is the old compact laptop, formerly known as the crap top. I'm tempted to start calling it by its original pet name, Obsidian, because it's all shiny and solid black and stuff, and bulb light reflection. I swear I didn't do this on purpose. But this thing, of course, is circa 2010. It's an AMD dual-core Athlon. It's 2010. The battery is completely dead because it's that old. The battery is completely dead and will not take a charge, and the screen has problems with the white screen of death. Now, I don't know if I'm going to use this for anything anymore because, well, it had a good run. It's basically the forerunner to the turd Shiba. I used to watch YouTube on this thing, and there was one time when I was trying to upgrade my main system years ago and it wasn't going very well that I played World of Warcraft Cataclysm on this thing in low mode. So it did have some gaming capabilities in the pre-APU AMD days. But as far as this machine is concerned, I do have some questions about whether it has a future or not. Assuming I can be a little more careful with this thing and keep it working, so to speak, I want to see if I can fix the white screen of death, see if it's a loose ribbon cable going to the internal display. As I know the external display, which is D-sub, VGA, old-fashioned, is perfectly fine. Alternatively, if it's not going to work properly as a laptop anymore, I'm wondering if I could take all the hardware out and mount it inside a desktop case, like the Dellasaurus. That would be something interesting, and I wouldn't have to buy a Kabini system. I'd probably have some kind of hack job thing with various extension cables and the like and things like that, but the future of this thing is a bit more up in the air than those two, by leaps and bounds. The crap book, my one and only netbook, is now being referred to by the original name I had for it, Big 3-0, which I bought back when I turned 30 as a birthday present. It's a relic of the layoff period, and much like other stuff from the layoff period, it's bad. So it's, oh man, this thing is just awful. I'm struggling to find some concentrated coolness for this thing and what I could do with it. It can't be really high horsepower either because, you know, I don't really, this thing is probably one of the slowest computers that I have in this darn place. It was low end in 2012 and it's even lower end now. AMD C60. Blah, yuck. This is before AMD started using the APUs for more than just a gimmick. Oh, look, we have a graphics card in the processor. Yeah, it's, right. One of the things that I think I could do with this, if I don't use it as like a MIDI box or something that needs to be portable for the MIDI setup of the keyboard or something. It can't be anything that requires a lot of CPU, obviously. But one of the things that I could do with this is use it for an upload station. So if I want to have videos uploading while I'm at work and things like that, a low-power device does all of that. Except this is not even the best candidate for such a role. That honor goes to the turd Shiba, which has lived up to its name, as it always seems like little things keep breaking on it over and over again. It's like that cartoon car where the nuts and bolts keep flying out of it as it bangs and clunks its way down the highway or the road or whatever. I originally picked up this Toshiba laptop for business trips that never happened. The New York one did, the one for Florida and Ohio did not. Ultimately, maybe late next year or the year after, this machine will be replaced by a Raven Ridge APU-powered laptop, and either it will continue, either I'll use the Raven Ridge as that's the mobile AMD Zen APU that's supposed to go into laptops later on. I want to use the Raven Ridge as my console replacement, and this can keep doing like bedroom TV duty, or it can go to the upload station. It's currently the best candidate for that sort of stuff because it drops all the way down to 10 watts when it's idling. That's lower than the crap book, and with a lot more horsepower to boot. Says a lot about the efficiency of AMD's APUs in the span of 3 years. This thing is circa 2015, and the other one, this is an AMD A8 circa 2015, and the other one is actually an AMD C6 circa 2012. Massive difference between those two chips. And lastly, we've come to these three partners in crime, beginning with Monolith. I am still to this day impressed with how Monolith just hums along nice and quiet, and I love the little blinky light for the drive activity. And so, yeah, it's just been chugging along. It's the colder months of the year, so I actually have all the fans turned down. And of course, I haven't seen much for dust in this thing, even when I have checked the filters. Let's actually check the main one right now. Look at that. Only a little bit. Just wipe that on your pant leg, and it... There you go. Yeah, just gotta watch how this thing goes back in order to make sure it's actually on the track for the dust filter. There we go. Yeah! How's this one doing? There's the two 140s in there and a little bit of stuff, but just a little bit of that. And we've got maybe a mulligan or two, and then haven't looked inside of it in a while. Haven't really looked inside of it for a while, but it's got, obviously everything's turned down. It's all nice and quiet. When you close the door, you can barely hear the darn thing. Cha-ching! If I ever want to change sides, that door is reversible too. One of the things I like about this case. The Define R5, the original, which still has an optical drive and room for 5 1/4. So I have the fan controller. This, at some point, I want to upgrade to Blu-ray. So this thing can play its own Blu-rays without needing the plug-in drive. It's part of the design specification for this machine. Still don't have it, and I barely even use the drive, so it's not like I'll put a lot of wear and tear on it, except for playing movies. Although, the Roland UM1 that I picked up earlier had an install CD for the driver, although Windows 10 had one that downloaded from Windows Update and installed itself automatically, so I just thought I didn't have it working right. So it's... But I do need to go shopping for optical drives to get this thing up to Blu-ray in order for... Well, this thing has one. This thing has one. I'm thinking the 2005 system that needs something else. The Silver Bullet. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. I don't know if something else is flaking out. As we saw with the lack of stability last time, where it sometimes didn't get through the post screens, I don't know if the Gigabyte board in this thing's finally going after just under 10 years. But otherwise, it had a good run, Core 2 Duo era. But this fan controller is borderline useless. This thing doesn't do anything. This thing doesn't really do anything anymore. The card in there is end of life. Or the Sound Blaster card is end of life. And this harkens back to the days before Creative went all dedicated with their stuff, dedicated gaming with their professional grade so-called triple-digit price tag sound cards. The front panels in these things, I mean, you could plug a 1/4-inch headphone thing into there. This was your volume. Likewise, you could plug a guitar into this, use it as a guitar amp, and actually turned off for line in, and then turned on for a microphone to boost it. You had MIDI in and out. You had not composite, but stereo in and out, digital in and out, optical in and out. It was definitely an all-purpose device, even if computer insides have always been kind of noisy for analog stuff like that, which is why this sort of design has fallen by the wayside in favor of doing more things through USB and more things digitally to eliminate the noise and stuff along those lines. I'm kind of stumped though. The Silver Bullet, really it should be a mobile gaming machine or something when it's all done, or it could be my main Linux machine. But the big thing with the Silver Bullet is that it's very, very portable because it's an aluminum case. Yeah, sure, I may have hack jobbed some front USBs on this thing, which are a little crooked now. They have to be realigned. But this thing is substantially lighter than its successor Tuxedo because it's aluminum instead of steel. Which, by the way, we're coming to the end of this discussion here, so one last hurrah for Monolith and its nice blinky blue light. Great machine that it has been since I built it last summer. Only a few goofy things here and there. I do think that the glitch I get on booting, where sometimes the system boots up too fast to detect the SSD and it goes into the BIOS, could probably be solved by moving the system onto one of those M3 SSDs instead of the serial ATA ones that I've insisted on continuing to use for so long. That's another discussion for another day. Which leaves us with poor old Tuxedo. It's old, it's tired, it was slowly falling apart when I finally decommissioned it in favor of Monolith. And the sad part is it still works, but I don't know to what extent, how unstable the board is in that thing. Whether it's going to have problems with power or something along those lines. Don't get me wrong, the system will still fire up and everything. Just missing some pieces inside. The system will still work. Sort of. Oh boy, it's been a while since I opened the door, so I gotta set the paper clip back to what it was. Yeah, this thing is old and tired. This thing is old and tired. The stability's just not there anymore, which is why I retired it. I did a little too much overclocking with this thing and definitely borked it quite a bit. I'll fix the door after I get done recording. Yeah! Sit down in a chair for the rest of this. Yeah, poor old Tuxedo. it's gotten the short end of the stick. This is the computer that needs a mercy killing. I don't know how we can... I don't want to USB zap that thing with that USB zap thing that's been going around. So no, nothing like that. But overclocking, experimenting, getting this thing to finally roast itself to death. That's something we should probably look into with this thing. Put it out of its misery. I did at one point mention the idea of Tuxedo with some, maybe with some more stable hardware that hasn't been overclocked to Sheol and back. But I did mention the possibility that Tuxedo could, because the name Tuxedo, and of course the color, could end up as my main Linux machine. I just need some decent bang for buck hardware to put in this thing without a Windows license or anything like that, and then put some Linux on there, and that can be the main machine for goofing around in Linux. Certainly has, as long as I fix the door, it definitely has some capabilities that way. And I could probably take some of those brag stickers off of it. That used to be a thing that I did to make the systems look more like off-the-shelf systems, is take all of those "you're running this type stuff" stickers and just put them over there. I even did it with "I voted" stickers for voting up to a certain point, and I was like, you know what, enough's enough. But in terms of concentrated coolness, I'm struggling the most with Tuxedo. It used to be my main system, but the lack of stability means it's now the lab rat in terms of, can we cook this thing to death and put it out of its misery, and then put some new hardware in it and have it be a Linux machine? Because, of course, we're going to lose the Windows 10 license when that Gigabyte board finally dies. And then what? So, how am I going to satiate my Linux curiosities, darn it? So, yeah. An interesting bunch of machines here, but the common ground and the common thread with all of this is concentrated coolness. Concentrated coolness is what matters. There needs to be a reason for using each and every one of those systems in order for them to earn their keep. I think I have it right now, but there may be some challenges in the coming months and years. This is MultimediaJay signing off. Thanks for stopping by.